Well, thank you very much. I want to say right now, first of all, thank you for the hardy folks who've stayed. Some of you, I'm sure, thought about leaving and saw my name and thought better of it. But I don't know about you. I attend a lot of these type things. I can't remember where I've seen a greater group of intellectual, knowledgeable people who were just fascinating in what they presented. You can relax, that stops now. What you're going to hear from me is going to be down to earth, practical issues, and I'm a user of energy. So that's what we're going to talk about, is how we use energy at FedEx and why we do things the way we do there as it relates to energy. I know it's late in the day, so I put my notes in my pocket. I'm going to talk off the top of my head, and then maybe we'll have some time for questions at the end. There it comes. We run on wings and wheels at FedEx. My responsibility, if it has wheels and it doesn't fly anywhere in the world, I'm responsible for it. Now, that's the vehicles that bring you your packages, but it's also a tremendous number of pieces of equipment that are powered by engines at airports that load the planes, unload the planes, and things like that. So we have a wide variety of uses for engines and for energy. And so we're looking at everything that's out there. And it's in our interest to do that. Obviously, that means that we're interested in the things that are out there in terms of alternative fuels, but also what's happening in the traditional space. Because for some time to come, we're going to be using traditional fuels probably more than we're going to be using alternative fuels. And we want to make sure that we maximize those uses as well. So while we are looking to the future, we're also looking at the present. I'll talk more about that specifically as we get into the discussion here today. I think it's probably wise to talk a little bit about who FedEx is, so that most people know that we deliver packages and we have these vehicles running around, but they're not real sure of what the makeup of FedEx is. The FedEx Corporation is actually 8 different operating companies, and we have a wide variety of transportation services that we provide. But overall, we have over 300,000 team members around the world. We have over 90,000 ground vehicles, about 670 aircraft. We deliver about 10 million packages a day across all of our operating companies. I happen to work for the largest operating company, FedEx Express. It's sort of the mothership. Was the one that was started as the airline, and then the other operating companies have spun off of that as we've seen different needs to meet what our customers' demands were around the world. So we are a large user of energy. It's obvious to anyone that looks at it that a good business person who's a large user of energy would want to be right on the cutting edge of what's going on, and that's where we try to stay. Sometimes, I won't lie to you, we get on the bleeding edge. And we get things out there that, they just don't work. As a matter of fact, I'll be very honest with you, probably most of the things I try really don't ever produce a product that we can use in the mainstream. So, but you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find a prince. And so we're out there looking for frogs all the time. To tell you a little bit about our direction and how we look at things, though, you have to kind of understand our philosophy. I've got it up on the screen, and it's pretty simple, but there's a lot in there. We look to connect the world in responsible and resourceful ways. Connecting the world allows a level playing field for developing countries, and it allows people who have products all around the world to get those products to potential customers. We want to make our business and the world more sustainable and efficient. Now, there's a selfish reason for that. Obviously, the more efficient we are, then the more profit we produce. We don't believe profit's a dirty word. We've studied it really hard, and we think that it's probably not a dirty word. And then the last part of our philosophy is improve global access. In other words, be able to have all parts of the world be able to access the rest of the world. So using that philosophy causes us to think about things a little bit differently than maybe we would otherwise. Sustainability, frankly, folks, is good business. If you don't have environmental sustainability on your list as a business, you really are not where you need to be as a business. So we know that. So it is important to us. But I want to be honest with you. We believe in a particular form of environmental sustainability, and that is we call it practical environmentalism. It needs to be a form of environmentalism that produces a result that we can live with. Frankly, if something is environmentally sustainable, but it is not economically sustainable, it will not live. It will die. And we're interested in things that will live, that will make a difference, that will make the world a better place to live. So, what do we do about that? How have we gone about our practical environmentalism and turned that into action? And the thing I would tell you about that we did back in 2008, we took a look at what was going on, and we were the first company to come out and say, look, as a transportation company, we believe we need to set a goal. So we looked at what we were doing. We said, here's our goal. Based on a 2005 baseline, we're going to reduce our carbon impact on the globe through our aircraft by 20% by the year 2020. We thought that's a pretty aggressive goal. We almost met that goal last year. So we raised that to 30% by 2020. Now, how are we going about attaining that goal? Well, first thing we're doing is we're buying modern fuel-efficient aircraft. It is amazing what aircraft today will do. The aircraft we're buying today will get probably 30 to 40% better fuel economy than the aircraft they're replacing. They also have longer range. They can go longer without stopping to refuel. And every time you stop to refuel, you burn fuel. So this has been a way we've done that. We've also used modeling to reduce the routes we fly. If we can reduce a route, it's economically sustainable and it's environmentally sustainable. So we looked at that too to be able to meet the customer's needs in the most efficient way possible. But we didn't just stop with our aircraft. We said, what about our vehicles? We said, let's set a goal like that as well. So in 2008, we said, using 2005 as a baseline, we're going to do the same thing in efficiency. We're going to reduce our fuel and increase our fuel efficiency and reduce the fuel we burn by 20% by 2020. We passed that goal last year by reducing it 22%. So we set a new goal, 30% by 2020. Now, to do it on the vehicle side, we used a little bit different strategy. We used what I call our reduce, replace, and revolutionize strategy. To talk about reduce, first of all, we reduced the miles run by, again, using technology to model our routes and to reduce the size of our fleet. The best thing you can do if you're wanting to reduce fuel burn is run fewer miles and run fewer vehicles. So we were able to do that. Then we looked at running the right vehicle on the right route. You may have a vehicle that's very fuel efficient. If you have it on a short route and you're running a vehicle that's not very fuel efficient on a long route, then that doesn't make sense. You'd say, well, no one would do that. Yeah, they would. Yeah, they would. A lot of people do that. And why do they do that? Because of personal preference. Because drivers say, well, I like that vehicle, or I like that vehicle. And while we really care about what our drivers have to say, at the end of the day, it's a business, and we need to run it like a business. So that's our reduce strategy. Our replace strategy is similar to what we did with aircraft. We started replacing our fleet with modern fuel-efficient vehicles. It is astounding to me. I was talking to a few people out in the hall. The efficiency of the vehicles we're buying today. The vehicles I'm buying today and putting into service are 80 to 100% more fuel efficient than the vehicles they're replacing. It's just astounding to me, and that has taken place over the last few years. We see that continuing to be the case. We see continued ability to reduce the amount of fuel we burn in the current vehicles we're buying. Then finally, we get to really what we're talking about today, our revolutionize strategy. And that is looking at the alternative fuels, looking at alternative energy sources, and looking at everything we can do. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that, and you probably notice I like pictures. I'm a simple guy. We're going to go away from pictures and start using a few words. So I told you to relax, so don't get too upset with me, but I'm going to have to do this now to kind of get into it. Our history, we started in 1992. We actually started testing natural gas, propane, and electric powered vehicles in 1992. Now, our electric powered vehicles were pretty basic. Had a lead acid battery, had a range of 16 miles. As I said to our group this morning, you want to talk about range anxiety. If you've only got 16 miles, that driver was sweating bullets every day when he left. We did have to go get him a few times and bring him back on the hook. So we didn't give him a lot of packages to deliver. But all that was a beginning, and we went from there, and we were very excited about the things that we learned. But it really wasn't practical then to make that a big part of our fleet. And that was one of the learnings. That's okay. As long as you're learning, it's okay to learn that what you're doing is not what you need to be doing. In 2000, along with the Environmental Defense Fund, we started developing a hybrid electric vehicle for use in the commercial delivery space and arena. And in 2004, we deployed the first of those in California. And it was a success, and we continue that today as we move forward. Although today we're seeing technology is running along so fast, those first vehicles we deployed in 2004, we laugh at how rudimentary they are and how really pitiful they perform compared to what we're putting out today. So a lot has happened in the last 10 years. In 2009, we deployed all electric vehicles in Europe and in Paris and in London. And in London, it was in response to what we had to do there because there was a fee being placed on what you were burning in the city. So we had to put electric vehicles there for a cost basis. But we learned a lot from that. So the next year in 2010, we brought them to the U.S. and we deployed them into the U.S. and have continued to do that. Today, we have over 625 alternative fuel vehicles deployed around the world and in the USA. And it's anything you can imagine. And when we get to the question and answer session, we may want to get into some of that. Now, today, though, we were talking primarily about natural gas. How do you deploy natural gas? Well, in Europe and Asia, we deploy it where it's mandated. Believe it or not, there are actually mayors in some cities who mandate the energy source you will use to deliver things in their city. For instance, in Florence, Italy, we can only use electric vehicles. So we bring everything to the edge of the city, we have our electric vehicles there, we load them, and then we deliver and we go back out with the pickups that we make. In other cities, they demand that you use either propane, or some cities say CNG. So we have that around the world. In the USA, we've only deployed natural gas vehicles in 3 cities. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute as to why that is. I'll talk a little bit about the benefits of natural gas as a transportation fuel. First and foremost is the cost differential. That's what's gotten everybody excited. Look, if you want to find out what will work and what won't work, follow the money. And I can tell you that people got so excited about the natural gas cost being so much cheaper that people, before we had real engines available for heavy-duty vehicles, there were people who were using engines that were way underpowered just to take advantage of using natural gas because of that cost differential. Less greenhouse gas emissions, I put maybe because we've been talking all day about that, and you don't need me to put my 2 cents worth in on that. That's something that the experts can talk about, and I'm not an expert nor the son of one, so I think we ought to leave that alone. And then the plentiful North American supply. My goodness. I mean, you've heard it today, and it's exciting, and I can really get excited about it. I lived through the 1974 embargo. I had similar responsibilities to what I have now at a much smaller level in 1974, and I can tell you that was a time when I really thought it was all over. I really thought it was all over. We don't ever want to go through that again. So having a plentiful North American supply of energy is extremely, extremely important. I don't want to in any way undermine the importance of that. When I start looking at the obstacles to using natural gas, there are several. And some of them you're probably aware of, some of them you may not be. The first one there is the limited availability of engines. In the heavy-duty space, as I mentioned earlier, we are just now getting a heavy-duty engine. Cummins Engine Company is making a 12-liter natural gas engine, and it's available today. I got 4 of the first ones they built. You say, well, gee, why don't you just go buy a whole fleet of them? I can't. They don't have that many. I think this year they will build less than 10,000. And with the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of engines they build, that's not a lot, but it's a start, and it's a good start. So that's a really a positive thing, but it's up to now not been available. It's been something we've had to deal with. Acquisition cost. There's a 50 to 80% premium for buying a natural gas powered vehicle. Now, that's something that maybe a fleet could look at total cost of ownership, and we could overcome that. But mom and pop out there, they're going to have a real struggle on that, when they look at a vehicle that's going to cost them over $200,000, they just can't make that climb. So I think you're going to see a pushback on that until a scale bills, that's my redneck coming out, you just have to overlook that. As scale continues to increase, you'll see those costs come down. And a lot of those costs today are associated with a tank, and that tank technology's got a long way to go. And especially on the LNG side, I mean, LNG is at 260 degrees below zero in its natural state, so it has to be in cryogenic tanks, and those aren't cheap. So I think you'll see that come down. Lack of fueling infrastructure. It's expensive to build. You've heard that talked about today. I could only deploy natural gas vehicles in 3 cities because that's where I had a significant infrastructure to do it and meet my service needs. As I said before, I sell certainty. So you expect those packages to get there. I don't think you're going to be happy if I say, well, the place I buy natural gas was out of service today, so we couldn't deliver your packages. So that's an area that will happen over time. What we require, because of our emphasis on service, I have to have a primary, secondary, and tertiary supply within a certain range from our station before I'll deploy a natural gas vehicle there. So that's sort of held us back as far as rapid deployment, even if things are available for us. The expensive to build, I think, is something a lot of people don't realize. To put in a diesel fueling station, you could do that for probably $125,000. To put in a fast fill CNG station with compressors and everything is a little over $2 million. So it's a bit of a stretch when you're looking at that. That investment and getting that investment back is a little bit more difficult than some of the other things that one might do. The cost of building compliance. If you want to take these vehicles inside a building, then many fire marshals frown on that. And you've got to modify the building to be able to accommodate that, especially if you're going to work on the vehicle. And some of those modifications, I have over 700 shops. So you can imagine if I had to spend $150,000, $200,000 to modify every one of those, what kind of investment that will be. So that's an obstacle. We'll overcome that. Many fire marshals are starting to become more understanding that, well, maybe we don't need all that. And we're seeing some reduction in that way. But it's there now. And then finally, it's been talked to death, the fugitive methane fumes. There's a lot going on there. What a lot of people haven't talked about, this occurs, we call them fumes in the South, by the way. I heard it called all kinds of things here today, but they're fumes to us. And what we haven't heard a lot of talk about is that occurs even in the vehicle. If we fill that vehicle up and we run and we park it, while it sits, especially with LNG, it will vent. And what it's venting is methane. So we've got to fix these things. And I think we've got the perfect opportunity to do it and do it right. I've heard enough today to really be excited about what is going to go into making this whole process done and done right. With that, before the thing starts to flash at me, I think we'll take some questions. So I'll go to my airplane slide coming right at you, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. And as usual, we have questions coming up here. You said something about most of your experiments ended up bleeding edge. They didn't work. Is that, like you try 10 frogs and one's a prince, or is it like 1 and 1? Or, what sort of track record do you really have on this?
I can give you some examples. I think that's the best way to handle it. All electric vehicles, for instance, we were really going strong in that arena, but 3 of the organizations that we were doing business with are now out of business. So those vehicles I've got, I'll just have to find ways to keep them running over the next few years, or I'll have to park them. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. They came out, they had some ideas. The ideas seemed to be pretty good. They got some grants. They were able to go for a little while, but they weren't able to sustain the business. They weren't able to get it into a situation where it produced an ROI. That's the big problem. With my R&D budget, and to show you the commitment of our company, I shared this with the group this morning. Even during the recession, a lot of things got cut. They never cut my R&D budget. They allowed me to continue to explore what was going on. But our goal is to get it out of the R&D world and into the normal, regular capital world. And that's where we're going to see things really blossom and take off. Only a handful of things make it over there because a lot of the things never get away from the high cost or the low reliability or the low ability to build them to scale and that type of thing.
Have you been experimenting with drones to bring packages to houses? And if not, why not?
Well, I'll tell you what. I use drones to spy on my people, but I found that's the most effective use of them at this point. But we do some things that I'll give you an example. I was sitting around thinking one day. I said, okay, I want to try something really out there. Natural gas is a big thing right now. I'm kind of fond of turbine engines. Plug-in hybrids are a big deal today, extended range plug-in hybrids like the Chevy Volt. So we retrofitted a vehicle, and we have one running today. It's a turbine, plug-in hybrid, CNG delivery vehicle. That one works so good because turbines don't care what you burn in them. We built a diesel one. So that's something that, it's just not out there everywhere. But I think you're going to see this kind of technology. I think this has a real chance of going forward. Now, you don't even want to know what I paid for that. So it's not anywhere near. It was $150,000. But it was a lot of money for just one. And that was taking a vehicle and retrofitting it. I already had paid for the vehicle.
Let's talk about competition a moment. And
let's.
Yeah, you've been really eating the lunch of the U.S. Postal Service and package delivery. Are they doing the same experimentation in fuels and vehicles as you are? And
I think they're experimenting and trying to make a profit or break even right now. But actually, I want to say something. We're not. The Postal Service is not really our enemy. We do many. Well, I can't tell you how much we do, but it's a lot of business with the post office. We carry a lot of the mail that you get through the post office. And what we do, we utilize our off route. For instance, we go here and we've got a vehicle or a plane sitting there, so we'll use that to do something for the post office to get it back to where it needs to be. So we don't really look at the post office as the enemy. They're just a cousin that's not very bright.
Okay, that points it out pretty well.
That better not show up anywhere, I'll tell you. Because they're a very good customer.
We just declared Chatham House rules retroactively for the last sentence or two.
Please.
Okay. In California, there's a group of regulators who decided that they love hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, and so they've mandated money to cover about 100 stations to put it in. I don't hear you using the word hydrogen fuel cell vehicles in what you're doing. Is that in play as far as you see, or is that sort of...
well, the word play is, I think, an important word there.
Yes.
Yes, I'm playing with hydrogen fuel cells. I'm doing it in two ways. One is on airport with the airplane service equipment and so forth, where I think it's got a lot of potential there because I've got the equipment there all the time. I'm going to do, I think, 20 vehicles later this year. And what we're basically going to do is use the hydrogen fuel cell as a range extender on the vehicles. So what will happen, it'll be an electric vehicle with the range extender being furnished by hydrogen fuel cell technology.
One question about sustainability. Oil from your fleets, do you recycle it, reuse it, or just dispose of it?
We allow others to recycle it and use it, yes. Oil is a very critical, it's a lifeblood of any piece of equipment you utilize. And so we use a lot of the higher end synthetic oils and so forth, but we do then sell that to people who recycle it and use it. So it doesn't get flushed down the drain.
Could you talk a little bit more about security issues? I mean, one of your major points is you deliver certainty. If you say you're going to deliver it and the customers don't get the package when you want, sometimes they're mission sensitive and you get in trouble. How do you talked about the stations. You went through an experience during the oil crisis in 73, 74, gas lines and so forth. Has that shaped thinking within the company in fundamental ways? And could you expand on the role of security and what you're doing?
Well, security of supply is absolutely crucial. And how we have learned to experience and deal with that is in natural disasters, as hurricanes or things of that nature. We have plans in place that we activate before these. We've got great warning systems now, so before these things hit, we'll activate these plans. But it's crucial, and it's on our mind. It's what keeps me awake at night, is security of supply, because it's the lifeblood of the business that we have.
Great. I think we have another flaw in the system. It's not exactly a wardrobe malfunction, but it must be a timer malfunction. It keeps saying 0
I noticed
times
that,
left.
yeah.
And this must be a malfunction, but probably not. I could get in trouble. So let me just thank you for this great event.
Thank you.
Thank you.